Hear the trumpets, hear the pipers, 100 million angels singing. Multitudes are marching to the big kettle drum. Voices calling, voices crying. Some are born and some are dying. It's Alpha and Omega's kingdom come. And the whirlwind is in the thorn tree. The virgins are all trimming their wicks. The whirlwind is in the thorn tree. It's hard for thee to kick against the pricks. Till Armageddon, no shalom, no shalom. Then the father hen will call his chickens home. The wise men will bow down before the throne, and at his feet they'll cast their golden crowns when the man comes around. Whoever is unjust, let him be unjust still. Whoever is righteous, let him be righteous still. Whoever is filthy, let him be filthy still. Listen to the words long written down when the man comes around. Hear the trumpets, hear the pipers, 100 million angels singing. Multitudes are marching to the big kettle drum. Voices calling, voices crying. Some are born and some are dying. It's Alpha and Omega's kingdom come.
I was getting the Tube, which is the London Underground subway system, and I was standing on the platform and I started hearing voices like echoing through the tunnels. The first one I heard was saying jump, was telling me to jump in front of the train and stuff like that, and to kill myself and things. And I was really confused. Obviously I was like, wait, I couldn't be hearing voices, like that's just, like that couldn't be happening to me.
The bad thing was I started sometimes reacting to what my voice was saying. You know, if it was telling me to hit someone, I'd hit them. Simple as that.
Another thing happened in my life that made it super traumatic in my life. Probably the most traumatic I've experienced that I can recall. I had gone through a breakup that is a little hard to talk about because it's not a normal breakup. Either ways, bad things happen. I was actually told to kill myself by my ex. And when he did that, the one voice turned to multiple voices. And it wasn't the same male voice I heard. It was mainly a mixture of male and females, but a female prominent went over them, I guess. But there was multiple. I can't tell you how many there were. It was just so many. They were always talking in unison. And they turned very, very dark. And not just dark against like my ex, it was dark to me. They told me to kill myself, that I'm not worth living, that no one cared about me, I was not worth fighting for. I deserve to suffer. I always put people in pain. I'm not a good person. I don't have any goals in life. I don't have any dreams, and anything that comes into my life becomes shit. So they turned into awful, awful ramblings in my head that happened every night for 5 months straight. 5 months straight, I could not sleep at night because these voices kept going. And I could only sleep during the day, and sometimes I would literally go days without sleep because it was just a cluster of horribleness in my head. And the only thing that calmed me down was me stringing my guitar that I had back then, which I don't have now. And not even playing video games would help, which is a thing now, is a coping mechanism for me to handle my episodes. Back then it was so bad, and during a traumatic time, during my teen years, which are still growing and the emotions in your head are just going chaotic as it is, it just got stuck, and I had 5 months straight, and then all of a sudden it stopped.
And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones.
I'm never leaving. You're worthless.
I was very, very lost, and I think this is why the voice so easily sort of took a hold of me and took control.
You can only trust me, Kyle. I will never let you down.
It was more like a desperation thing. I just had to try and get rid of this voice.
You will never be. I'm unstoppable. Listen to me. I will never be here.
So I slashed my head, sort of here on my head, with a Stanley knife. There was like a loud, high-pitched noise and then nothing. It was nice to be at peace again. But the voice came back after 30 minutes.
I'll never go.
It told me to say that I'd killed someone.
You've killed someone. Kyle, you've killed someone.
I had a possible seizure, and then I was taken to a neurologist who took me to a psychologist, and he said I also had paranoid schizophrenia. Like, that was the first thing off the bat that he said I had. So I figured out what it was, and I became less afraid of it until it would happen. And when it did happen, I tried controlling it as best as I could, which is not easy to do at all, because it's something you can't just put your hands on and say no kind of thing, or shut up or anything like that. It's something that makes you feel like you're a cage in your own body, and you almost feel like it can take over you at any second. And that's a scary thing, because when it's telling you to commit suicide, in my personal aspect, I suddenly feel like my body's being taken over by something and it's trying to make me commit suicide. You know, it doesn't always happen, obviously, but I have gotten close in my life. If you can see these are all scars. These were all created when I was 16, during that big time of voices, when they happened every night and I couldn't escape them and they were getting worse. I would almost cut every single night, because it just all of a sudden I felt like I lost control of myself, and I thought they had controlled me.
Come to the bridge. Come on. Come to the bridge. I put you in a wheelchair. You couldn't even kill yourself properly.
I don't remember the police at all. I don't even really remember being on the bridge. The police shouted my name. I turned towards them, looked at them, turned back towards the bridge, and then just stepped off.
Jump.
I broke my right foot and ankle. I smashed my pelvis. I fractured my sternum, smashed my left wrist, and I broke my right wrist. I know it's hard for anyone to be my friend. It makes you just not want to hang out with people and not want to go out. I do actually want to meet people. I'd like a girlfriend. It is quite hard to meet a girl and then stay around, because it's terrifying to meet someone who doesn't necessarily want to live all day, every day.
You're going to die. Suicide. I pull the strings. Die. Jump off the bridge again. Jump off the bridge. I pull the strings.
By flooding my ears with negative comments and filling my head with nothing but shame.
Shut up.
The street lamps light the bridge like lights on a runway. You try to talk me into a fate that would mean I'd never see loved ones again.
Shut up. Fuck, shut up.
I was stood on a bridge with you shouting in my ear, saying everyone would be better off if I just wasn't here. Victor's yelling and shouting at me. I tell you to shut up. I argue and I fight, hands gripping the rail in resistance. I'm trying to concentrate. You captured me and held me hostage underneath the moonlit sky for what felt like a lifetime, drowning in self-doubt and despair. But I fought and I argued, then I fought some more. It took all the strength I had, but I made it home. I slammed my front door. I shouted, I have the power, not you. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? I am proud of myself that I defied Victor. It feels good.
I can't show you all the pages of this journal because some of them are covered in blood. From times where I was severely suicidal and the voices really got to me and I would cut. I'll admit I don't do that anymore, but back then when I couldn't control it and I've had a feeling that I was all alone in it all, I did get to that state and I did allow myself to bleed all over the journals. Why? Because when you're in that state of mind, you're not so much thinking at all, ever. So I'm only going to show you the pages that don't coincide with the blood. So this is my old one. This one's completely filled. As you can tell, there's a lot of different things. Pages are thick from writing and everything like that. So I'm not going to read you any of this stuff. But this one goes all the way back to 2013, the beginning of that year. And you can tell it's all scribbled on. And I scribbled whenever I heard the voices. I didn't write down some of the things that they said back then. I used to just scribble it all out. And it just went on and on. And there are a few things in here that I did write that my voices did end up saying. So this is basically, the reason why I'm showing you guys is so you have an idea what's going on in their brain, what creative things might happen when an episode is occurring. Because there are pictures of, you can see at old hospital wards of what schizophrenics used to draw during their episodes or write. And you don't see a lot of them, but I figured I'll show you some of my weirdness. I mean, during an episode, you're not so much there. You're elsewhere. And when you hear voices, it can be scary. You don't have control over yourself, and you become overwhelmed with everything. And it's like, as you can tell right here, this is me starting to write out what they say. So I don't know if you can even read that, honestly. I don't really want you guys reading it, but whatever. But when I started scribbling like that, where it's like chicken scratched almost, that's when the voices started coming in. I started writing down things that they would say, like, no one cares, no one listens, time is ticking and you will die, no peace, he will leave, he will never see, you are weak, you want to harm something, do it, kill it, do it. So they are very commanding, they're very negative, as I've explained in my voices video. And that's common for schizophrenics, where they're very commanding, very demanding. Doesn't mean that a person will be pushed to doing the things that they say. That's never the case. No, that's not always the case. I can't say it's never a case. But I don't feel inclined to do what they say, unless if it's to kill yourself. And then that, I feel more pressured into doing that than to hurt someone. It says right here, you are nothing, you do nothing. Yeah. Whatever marker or pencil I have or pen I have at the time is what I use to scribble down, whatever's closest to me. There's some pages that are not scribbled on. It just happened to be where I wrote the things down instead of scribbling that time. Sometimes that happens. It goes throughout almost this entire book. But I was a lot more controlled back then than I am now. I still have the severity of it all. I'm still getting worse every single day while I'm not getting help. But I have a lot less stress as I did back then, so I didn't corner myself into a closet. I'm more trying to figure out how to stop the episodes from occurring than to allow them to occur and get their way. Which sometimes you don't have a chance. Like in this right here, all this is all the voices, and all they did was repeat abuser. They repeated, and I just kept following what they were saying. Because with borderline, I feel like I'm an abuser in some way, because when I get angry, I can't control the things that I say, and I say some really mean things, and I don't want to say those things, but they just come out, and afterwards I'm questioning why I said it. How did it come out of my mouth when I didn't want it to come out? It was bad. They wrote in their heads right here. Now this is in the beginning when me and Zach first started dating, and he did not know how to handle my schizophrenia or my borderline. And hopefully you guys can see me right now. I hope I'm not blurry. So he often didn't know how to handle my borderline or my schizophrenia. So oftentimes back then, yes, he said and did things that he really shouldn't have done during episodes that made them a lot more worse than he does now. It left marks, as you can tell. Like I said, I had 2 journals before these ones, filled with the same stuff. And these are all during episodes. Anything that looks like this for me, we're doing episodes. No one understands, all alone, all alone, all alone. A lot of these I don't feel when I'm not having episodes. Yeah, I feel them when I'm having episodes, when I hear the voices, when they start screaming, when I start seeing things. That's when it starts becoming a reality for me that I have these issues. Because when I don't have them for a time period, say if I don't have it for like 2 weeks because my stress is very low and everything is at a calm for a while, and I am able to breathe, and my brain is just kind of settled for the time period, I question myself, do I have these disorders? Is it really happening? And guess what? That's part of being paranoid. That's part of being delusional. And then it happens, and I start hearing them again, and I start seeing them again, and then I realize, oh yeah, this is a thing. This is really happening. Because you want to believe for that settled moment where everything is calm, that everything is calm and you got fixed. But in reality, it's not fixed, and it will never be fixed. It's not something you can fix. It's something you're stuck with for life. Even on medication, you can still have episodes. You can still relapse, and you can still go back to it, but you get different dosages and everything like that. Here's one of them from my old ones, so you have an idea, and you can tell it's a different journal because of the different papers. But these are from my old ones, and these bigger lettering like this, that's what the voices would say. Deserve, pain, lazy, always the same, bitcher, no one, nowhere. Some of the words I can't read. Oh, prove you deserve your dreams. You don't deserve anything, you won't do anything. It's just, it continues, and they were bad. I mean, looking back at these, a lot of people would think, why are you doing this? I mean, it's traumatic, what you're going through and putting yourself through. I actually go back to these so I can remember what I fought through. I don't go back and try to remember my bad past or my bad voices. I go back wondering why my cats are messing with my computer. I go back and remind myself that I fought through these things, that I got through them. I'm a fighter.
Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand.
We've been in the gym at school, and there's these ropes hanging up on the ceiling. And I felt quite happy. I wasn't distressed in any way. I went in the gym and I heard his voice saying, hang yourself. Do it now. Hang yourself. It was so strong, it was so powerful. It was, you know, and so frightening. I mean, as a kid, and I wet myself through fear. I wet myself. I didn't know I was going mad. That never. I don't think I ever even thought of going mad. I just didn't know what it was.
Although the debate about the causes of voice hearing seems at this stage to be unresolvable, there is no question that many people who hear voices have succeeded in finding ways to live with them. But nobody's suggesting that it's always easy.
Well, there's robotic voice. I don't mean a Dalek type voice. You don't talk like, hello, how are you? That kind of voice. It's precise. It's cold. It's still like. And it, you know, every time I think of it, I think of factories and trains going up and down and coldness and no human beings at all. No flesh, no blood, no. Just coldness, just mechanical. That voice is the most powerful one of all because it's. I can't explain it, but I feel it. Not only do I hear it, I feel it. It's like someone going into you and gripping you by the stomach. I'm whipping you like that. It really is. It makes me feel sick. You know, oh, it's frightening. I got off a bus. We were visiting Karen. Got off the bus. It was like a panic attack. You know, hot, heat, yeah, temperature rising. You know, like that. I froze, and it said, "Jump in the road, jump in the road, jump in the road." That is the most frightening voice of all, and the others I've got a rapport with. You know, I feel I've entered in some kind of relationship with him. That one is wild. You know, that one didn't like the filming at all. Didn't like the idea of the camera here, and didn't like the idea of being involved in this program.
I had a small cleaning job and I used to go clean at this private house. And one day I was there cleaning and I was vacuuming up. And I heard this voice, sort of like a thought, you know, not an actual voice. And it said, "Who's she?" Then a moment later it began to talk to me again and it said, "You don't know who you are, do you?" And I was thinking at the time of furniture polish. What room I was going to clean next, and it didn't fit into my thought pattern at all. And I can remember thinking, what is this? You know, what is this happening to me? I was in utter despair about myself and confusion, you know. And there were situations in my life at that time I was having problems with my older children and with my husband. And the feelings that were there underneath about my neighbour were feelings of anger, what I'd subdued, and I tried to be a nice neighbour. And this anger come from nowhere, just in my very being, you know, towards her. Over a matter of months, things have been happening, like a dog was coming round and whoopsing all over the garden, and I had small children and I was worried about it. The voices sort of said, you know what she's like. If you don't do anything, your children could become ill with this, you know, muck that's around and various other things. And they made me feel inadequate as a mother because I'd let it go. And they were on and on at me constantly, solid for about 24 hours. I didn't get any sleep until the following day. They were on at me again and again. And then finally in the early hours of the morning, I went round, you know, and smashed the windows and hurled abuse and become very violent and everything, you know, which really wasn't me. You know, I didn't have any sense as though I were in control. And then there was this sudden realisation of, oh my God, you know, what have I done?
Susan Clarkson was arrested later that night and spent some weeks in a psychiatric hospital. If she'd had the chance to talk about her voices before things had got out of hand, could events have taken a different course?
The danger always is that people say, yeah, when people want to kill somebody, and the voices tell him to kill somebody. I think the best thing is to accept that the person has a voice and who tells him to kill a person. Because if I talk about that, we can also talk about how to prevent that happens, because the person also says, it's not me telling me to kill somebody, but it's somebody else. So we acknowledge that it's somebody else, so that it's very important to get much more defense against that other person in your head who tells you to kill. And in that sense, we can make a joint venture to prevent that the killing, in fact, happens. If we don't do that, the voice keeps on telling that he has to kill, and then this person lives on a balcony, which on a certain moment might get out of control, and then he kills somebody. So not talking is much more dangerous than talking. I have never met somebody who did some aggressive things after explorative talking about it, but always with people who never got the chance of talking.
It's 2 years since Susan Clarkson left hospital. She's actively trying to promote awareness and understanding about voice hearing in her area, and the hospital now refers voice hearers to her for support. Does she understand now what drove her to act as she did?
A lot of the emotion was the frustration and the desperation of not knowing if it was real, what was real and what wasn't real. Because I knew it was real, that the voices were real. I never doubted that they were real because I were experiencing them. I know that sounds pretty bizarre, but I mean, when you're experiencing something, you know that it's real, whatever level people want to measure that. And this was. And nobody would understand or take it on board. And that's really when the desperation set in.
Peg's problems appeared to stem from how she felt about looking after her elderly parents.
When the voices really started causing you a great deal of distress, what happened? What form did the voices take at that time?
They directed me in what to do in the situation, how to cope with it. But my way of coping wasn't really acceptable to society.
There was one episode where you were in the car with your father and you felt that there was something strange happening to your thoughts at the time.
Yes, I did. Things got out of control and I just saw a tree and I thought, I'm going to go for that tree. I've got to get rid of him.
Right.
And I don't know how I missed it.
How do you see the sorts of processes that led up to you not being able to cope with the voices?
I think I was so involved in my work, and then at the same time I had elderly parents who needed a lot of help. And I never went away and recharged my own batteries. And you see, I was happy with my voices. And when they told me to do something, I didn't see anything wrong in it at all. It was other people perceived it as wrong.
Right.
But to me, it was the answer.
What is your explanation of the voices? How do you understand that?
I think I was out of control. Because when I was in my right mind, I could see that it just wasn't on.
But at the time, I was completely convinced by them.
Now, what to you then is the difference between being in your right mind and being out of control? How do you see the difference between those two states?
Well, in my right mind, I can reason. But when I'm hearing my voices, I feel with them and I act. I don't stop and think it out.
Right.
I had an argument with a friend on the phone, and the argument escalated into me having an anxiety attack. Now, if you have anxiety attack is kind of like a panic attack. You can't breathe, and you just kind of like, for me, it's like I can't breathe and I can't think, and my mind just goes, that goes blank. To this point, my mind went blank and I'd fainted. When I woke up, I couldn't remember anything, and the only things running through my mind at that time, it's like my mind had completely shut down, and in my head all I could hear was these voices like it was basically the voice was telling me to kill my whole family. My care team kind of described me as someone who's in between, like with psychosis and schizophrenia and all these long-term mental health conditions. Yeah, it's like a flapping door. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like a flapping door. And at the moment where I am and where I've always been with my mental health is I have a hold of that door. That door's not fully flung open, or it's not fully closed, if you understand what I'm saying. If it fully flies open, I've got no control over my schizophrenia and I'll lose my mind. So anyways, back to that. So I felt like I could hear all these voices in my head telling me like to kill my family and to kill myself. And when I kind of was regaining my senses, I just called the ambulance. When I called the ambulance, I said, listen, I don't know what's happening to me, but I feel like I'm going to kill myself and my whole family, so please help me. I called the ambulance and they took me to my local accident emergency. There, I just broke down into tears because so this is when it comes to my early symptoms of psychosis or schizophrenia or whatever you want to call it. When I was a child, I always felt like I had friends, or like people that could speak to me, and I'd always like describe it as like an imaginary friend. I had one like up and like through. I've always experienced people who or felt these kind of things around me, and I've always thought they were real. I didn't ever think up until the point maybe when I was about 18, 19, and someone was like, "Yo, this isn't right, Sam. Like this isn't cool. Like this isn't real. The voices in your head aren't really real." And so when I went to the hospital and I got admitted and I went to the A&E, the main focus when I got there was to kind of tell me that these voices aren't real. And at that point, someone who's so used to them, it completely threw me off.
From when I stepped on this farm, I wanted to be a maximum security inmate. I did this by choice. I do think I am a dangerous person because I'm unpredictable. And I have a list of people that I'm gonna get if the warden decides to let me out ever again. I have a list of people that I will hurt.
In the segregation unit of ORW, inmate Eileen Rose is going before the Rules Infraction Board. She's facing charges that she assaulted an officer. Charges that make her not only one of ORW's most dangerous inmates, but also among its most difficult to manage.
This is the Rules Infraction Board, April 13, 2010. Your ticket today is causing or attempting to cause physical harm to another with a weapon. Okay, how do you plead to Rule 5?
Guilty. I had all intentions of cutting her with a razor. I sat on watch for 2 days plotting her death. And I'm saying this on record. If they don't take the necessary actions, I'm gonna kill her. This is not the first lock in the sock incident, and you know that.
Your assaultive behavior, the threats, the weapons, tray throwing, lock throwing, all of that has got to stop. If you ever want to leave ORW, you cannot do that.
I mean, she's still alive, so I didn't do that bad.
Go ahead and step out, call you back in.
Segregation is ORW's most extreme sanction for bad behavior. The threat of isolation is enough to keep most inmates in check. But Rose isn't like most inmates. there's another dimension to her assaults, one that makes punishing her more complicated. She claims that she hears voices, voices that command her to hurt officers. And lately, she hasn't been taking all of her medication.
I don't like hurting people, but when I come off the medication, it makes me more violent. It's like I can't stay out of my head.
We currently have over 1,000 offenders on our mental health caseload. 50% of our offenders are on psychotropic medications. It's not just dealing with an offender who's come to you who've committed a crime. Now you add an additional layer, and now you're dealing with a person who is suffering from schizophrenia or somebody who may have some sort of behavioral disorder.
Mental illness is an issue in every prison, but female inmates are more likely than men to seek treatment. For these offenders, ORW cannot be simply a punishment. It must also shield them from the strains of general population. Balancing the roles of prison and mental hospital is one of ORW's toughest management challenges. Each day, ORW runs the largest pill call in the Ohio prison system, and nearly half of the women receive mental health medication. But for some female offenders, no treatment can protect them from the pressures of prison life.
What happened? I mean, I know you were doing just fine. What triggered? Did you have some sort of encounter with an inmate or another staff, or what? She stashed a couple of pieces of razor blade on the sides of her cheek, and that's what she used to inflict the wounds. It's fairly common. I would almost use the word routine. Several times a week, at some point in our operation, we have someone who is on some sort of crisis watch or suicide watch. Oftentimes, what happens with a lot of our female offenders, their way of coping with any crisis situations initially is to hurt themselves and do self-inflicting wounds on themselves as opposed to reaching out to some intervention.
Eileen Rose was offered mental health assistance. Instead, she chose the path of violence, of seeking out segregation.
I'm not a people person at all. And I'd rather be in segregation because, you know, here, I don't have to deal with nobody but myself.
There's a lot of different ways that inmates manipulate the system. We see it every day in different circumstances. This is a disciplinary unit, but because she enjoys that kind of seclusion, it does not seem like a punishment to her. Rose?
For her actions, the system is left with few choices.
We're finding you guilty of the violation. 15 days from now to the 27th. In addition, we'll recommend that you have a security level review. Do you want an appeal?
No.
Come on up here, let's get signed.
Rose's punishment is local control, and with it, up to 6 months in the hole.
By putting her back here, we can ensure that that officer is safe. So though she does get what she wants, we make sure that our staff is safe. And to me, that's a fair trade.
Eileen Rose continues to sit in segregation, where she'll remain for up to 6 months.
I got myself. I pace back and forth all day long. I talk to the voices in my head, so I'm okay.
She is now one of only 3 maximum security inmates at ORW.
They say the boogeyman isn't real, but for those who encountered Albert Fish in the early 20th century, they know that evil does exist. Albert Fish was a serial killer who committed a string of detestable crimes in a variety of locations, including Brooklyn. He was originally called Hamilton, but he chose the name Albert for himself later in life, taking on the identity of a sibling who had passed away as a child. He also claimed to hear voices telling him to commit his crimes, and some have speculated that these voices were somehow involved with the taking of the sibling's name, that he was possessed by something malevolent which hated life so much that it had to feed upon it. Reading about Fish's crimes, it's difficult not to think that his actions lacked all humanity and perhaps were driven by something demonic instead. At only 15 years old, Burbank, California youth Edmund Kemper was arrested after he shot his grandmother and then his grandfather with a .22 caliber rifle, killing them both on August 27, 1964. When asked why he committed the murders, he chillingly replied, "I just wanted to see what it felt like to kill grandma." He added that he only killed his grandfather because he knew the old man would be angry over the death of his wife, and the boy wanted to avoid getting in trouble. Kemper was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic and was sent to the criminally insane unit at the state hospital, where he served only 5 years. After convincing his psychiatrist that he was rehabilitated, Kemper was released on December 18, 1969, his 21st birthday. However, instead of becoming a respectful, good member of society, he decided to viciously murder 6 women, dismembering them and keeping their heads for trophies before then killing both his mother and his friend. After that event, he turned himself in, explaining that the reason for his murder spree was the revenge against his abusive mother that was ultimately completed. Born on August 30th, 1982, Kipland Kip Kinkle was a troubled boy who was always easily frustrated and anxious when he was in school. He did very poorly in his educational pursuits, repeating the first grade, and even was eventually diagnosed with a learning disability. By the 8th grade, Kip was hiding guns in his bedroom, shoplifting, and had even been caught ordering books on how to build bombs. Then, on May 20th, 1998, 15-year-old Kip was arrested and expelled from his school in Springfield, Oregon after a stolen gun was found in his locker. Upon returning home after the interrogation, the teenager pulled a gun from his collection and shot his father Bill in the head, soon after shooting his mother multiple times, killing her as well. But it gets even more disturbing, as the next morning, Kip brought his entire gun collection to his former school and opened fire in the cafeteria, killing 2 students and injuring 25 more. Luckily, fellow students managed to subdue him until the authorities arrived and arrested him. When he was questioned, Kim claimed that he heard voices instructing him to kill and that he wanted to die. He is currently serving his 111-year sentence.
For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Now if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. I find then a law, that when I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. O wretched man that I am! Who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then with the mind I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh the law of sin.
And I would say to people that if you do start experiencing this, try not to panic, because I remember the reason I panicked when I started experiencing it was because of where I was. I was on the tube platform, and the first one I heard was telling me to jump in front of the train. And at the time, because I'd never experienced this before, I thought, what if this voice can make me do that, even if I don't want to? So the first thing to do is not to panic and kind of realize that, okay, I'm experiencing this thing, but they actually can't control me. They can't make me do anything. Obviously, voices can try and influence you. They can try and suggest things to you. But actually, you have to remind yourself all the time, I am in control, I am in control, I'm in control. That's a big one that you have to realize, that you don't have to do anything they say. And it's recommended that you don't.
The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth, and delivereth them out of all their troubles. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all. But the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober, and watch unto prayer.